Did you know there are two magical surfaces on the earth? The sand at the beach and the cement next to the pool. Two magical surfaces. Bet you didn't know it. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. It's a project about what it means to have a relationship with God. How do I live that out in practical terms? Well, we hear words like modesty thrown around, and you ask yourself as a Christian, how should I dress? There's lots of ways to go with this. I'm going to take the easy one. Yeah, that magical sand. It's amazing how when you go to the beach, people feel like they could dress a certain way. And then as soon as they cross the street back into public, then you got to put on some sort of covering or some sort of cover up. Over here, you can wear the equivalent of, and probably less than, a bra and panties for women. And then across the street, though, you got to have a cover up because that's indecent. Or at the pool, same thing. You go into the pool on that concrete around the pool and you can dress just about however you want to. But as soon as you step outside that fence into the parking lot, you need to be covered up. I saw that magical cement at Carowinds when we used to go because you could dress a certain way in this area of the park, and when you left, you had to be clothed again. Now, why is that? Well, how should we dress? And yes, I know that the women will probably get unnerved by this, but there are different commands in the Bible that relate more to men and some that relate more to women. And as it regards modesty, ladies, there's just no helping it. We are, as men, visually motivated, stimulated, however you want to say. So ladies, there's just no way of getting around it. You have a lot of power. You have the ability to affect us in a really positive way or in negative ways. You can be a distraction and a tool for the devil. So you go back, let's just simplify this. There's not many places where modesty is mentioned. How to dress, how to behave. We do know that we're not supposed to be a stumbling block for our brothers and sisters, or for anybody for that matter. When you go to Genesis chapter 2 and you see, or chapter 3, I should say, after Adam and Eve are created, the entire world is created, and Satan sticks his fat nose in and lies and deceives Eve and deceives Adam as well. And they go and hide because they hear God walking in the cool of the day. And when you get down to verse 7, then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden. I was afraid, because I was naked and I hid myself." He said, "Who told you that you were naked?" And it goes on from there. What's the problem? Shame has entered into the scenario, into the picture. It sounds so odd. They were living in a garden with a tree of life that they probably could have eaten from forever and ever. Death has not entered the picture. Sin has not entered the picture before this time. And so there's no shame. Nakedness is not a problem. But as soon as they sin, they realize they were naked and they go to do something about it. And they sew for themselves fig leaves together to make a loincloth, as the ESV translates it. In other places in the Old Testament, that same word is translated belt. So we're not talking about much coverage here, just probably enough to cover those regions or those areas. So God comes in and deals with Adam and Eve and deals with Satan more importantly. And after all this is said and done, in verse 21, the Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skins and clothed them. I looked up that word garments as well. Same word as translated robe in Genesis 37 for Joseph. You might, in some translations, see the word tunic. And the idea is that they were fully covered. So now you have these areas. And by the way, today, I know a lot of females, it's not just younger women, older women as well, who have no problem with a bikini. Basically the same thing that Adam and Eve decided to clothe themselves with. And if it was sufficient, then God would not have clothed them with these animal skins, and yet he does. And you realize I used to have a lesson called How to Look Good in a Tunic, because you have to work to be attractive in a tunic, in animal skins. You can't just show off body parts and attract in such a cheap manner like a lot of people do today. It's amazing too how, look, Men have to be responsible. We do. We have to be responsible and be like Job and make a covenant with our eyes. And we can't just look at women and lust after them. Jesus talks about that in Matthew chapter 5. The same token, ladies, you cannot be flaunting yourselves around. It's amazing how I've seen some girls who wear next to nothing and see a guy looking at them, which is probably the reason they did it in the first place, and then get mad. Now, when I go by a Cinnabon, you know what they have in the window there? Cinnamon rolls. That'd be like me walking by a Cinnabon, the employee back there getting mad at me saying, "Don't look at my cinnamon rolls." But that's the whole point. Advertising. They want you to see. Same thing for ladies as well. And what you're finding is that as we uncover, as we wear women, as you wear certain things, you find out that it's not about a level of comfort. It's about attention. You want that kind of really cheapened attention. And this is not popular. You know, I'm considered a stick in the mud or a legalist or things like that. And then people want to know what the lines are, you know, how far is too far. And the idea is for me to look at the Bible and see how God, in this case, covered up Adam and Eve. And it's not just Eve that he covered, it's Adam as well. And we need to make that distinction also. But he covered them because the shame partly was in their nakedness. That's amazing how much shame people want to show off in summertime when they're in good shape or they feel good about themselves. That's exactly what they're doing, just letting their shame be seen for everybody else. And people who are so-called Christians normalize this behavior. It boggles my mind how dads can look at their daughters who walk out. And it's not just revealing clothing. It's not just a swimsuit. It's not just, shorts that look more like underwear. It can be tight clothing as well. These poor guys these days, I don't know how they do it with these girls running around in what is the equivalent of 2 steps from pantyhose, and they're calling them pants. They're yoga pants, leggings, whatever you want to call them. And the point I'm getting back to is I can't, for the life of me, understand a dad, grown man who knows what it's like to be a young man especially, and see all of that around or see their daughters dressed like that and say, that's the look we're going for. Good job. You know how we struggle, especially as young men, as I mentioned earlier, and it just doesn't add up here. So what's the point? Well, when you go to 1 Peter chapter 3, in fact, I hadn't planned on going here, but 1 Peter chapter 3, ladies, you want to be attractive, you want to be honorable, you want to receive the kind of attention you want. If you dress certain ways, behave certain ways, go certain places, you're going to attract certain types of people, and you can't complain about it because that's what you're trying to draw in. Ladies, if you really want to be honorable, you look at 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 1, likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives. Even your conduct, ladies, can win over your husbands who don't have a relationship with God. And when they see your respectful and pure conduct, do not let your adorning be external. It should really be merely external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear. It's not saying that it's wrong to wear clothes. It's not saying it's wrong to wear jewelry or to fix your hair. None of those things are wrong. But don't let your whole identity and the way people see you be only that. It's just a shell of who you are. But instead, let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. You want to be precious, ladies? You want to attract the right attention? Then make sure it's not in the cheap way of just trying to get those looks and get those stares and make sure people see you. And that's generally what it's about. I hear young girls and moms even talk about how it's just because it's the style. It makes me feel good about myself and I should have this freedom. You do have the freedom. The problem is you're sending the wrong messages and it's not the way God had clothed Adam and Eve. So let's go back to the beginning. Adam and Eve had made for themselves what they thought was coverings. They covered the bare minimum. God came behind, gave them animal skins. They were much like long shirts or robes, and that was to cover up so they wouldn't show their shame or their nakedness, also so they wouldn't be a stumbling block for the other and as the world populated for other human beings they come into contact with. I know it's not popular. I hope you will consider it. I hope you won't just write me off as a stick in the mud or old-fashioned or whatever it is you want to say, but I hope you'll look at this and you'll take an estimation of where your value really is, and you won't distract from that value by showing yourself and revealing yourself in a way that God hasn't designed. And with that, remember, how much sense does it make? You can go to the beach and dress a certain way, get off the magical sand, and all of a sudden now it's taboo. You shouldn't be dressed like that. You need to cover up. Or you can go outside that chain link fence and all of a sudden you need to cover. There's a reason why we feel that way. You need to examine that as well. I want to thank you for being with us today. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. If you haven't already subscribed by hitting the button below, over here you can see videos, one that YouTube recommends and one is our last release. If you're listening on podcast, thank you for being with us as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review. All these things help us to get the word out. The only importance for getting the word out is so that we can help other people. With that in mind, consider sharing this video.